Hello, good evening, everyone. Very good evening. We'll just wait another 1 to 2 minutes for everyone else to join in. I see a lot of good evenings and people joining in from, you know, Ukraine we have and India as well. And Nigeria, we have people commenting on it. Very good evening to all of you across the world. Good evening. Please do tell us in your comment where you are joining us from. We would really like to know where you are joining Sentalk session from. And of course, your name is reflecting, but we would like to know which role you are taking up in educator in the school as well. Nice. So we have Hina ma'am, who is HOD of science. Hello, good evening. Oh, we have from Pakistan as well. Good evening to you. We have Romania, Jordan, and African region joining in. Really awesome. So 2 minutes have passed. And again, if you are joining in just right now, good evening, good morning to all of you. Today we have very exciting content prepared for you. We have like global teachers joining in right now at this session. As you can see in the comments, these are your peers. You can collaborate with them, talk to them. You can see what are their views on this session as well. So good evening again. As you all know, CENTALKS, which is led by global educators around the globe, offers the CENTA teacher community and insights into the classroom, best classroom practices, as well as for their teacher professional development. You should register for these sessions and actively participate in the engagement, whether it be the polls, the comments, the Q&A, and help us improve the session better. And we seamlessly try to take your feedback and make the session better and better for you. And on behalf of CENTA, I welcome you today for this very exciting session of this CENTALKS series. Today's topic is backward designing in curriculum, and the facilitator for today's session is Dr. Pooja Jain. Before I give you introduction about Dr. Pooja Jain and her credentials about it, I just want to give you I know we have been repeating this for the past 2 months, but we will not be sharing any feedback form post this session. All the feedback form has to be filled up and your record of participation will be issued only if you registered in the CENTA app. So in order to participate in the session, in order to fill the feedback form, in order to get the record of participation, you have to register for the session. Only upon registration, you can just download the record of participation instantly from the CENTA app. Now that is something, right? It's completely hassle-free and you do not have to wait for the record of participation next day or maybe the next day. You can just get it from your My Learning section in the CENTA. We'll be talking more about it in the later part of the session. But let me just bring attention back to today's session. So I was talking about today's topic, backward designing curriculum, and we welcome Dr. Pooja. Hello, Dr. Pooja.
Hi, Rastogi.
Hi,
Just
hello.
give me a second because there was a power cut and I'm
All right,
trying
no
to
problem.
resume that. Just give me one
Yes,
second.
yes, sure. So while Dr. Pooja comes back on screen, just wanted to talk to all of you whether you are familiar with this process, because I know we have been talking about it, but then this process is just to make the download of record of participation as well as what your insights are about the CENTALK session seamlessly collecting and getting into our system. So how do you are you, what is your status on that? Were you aware of that? Are you just getting to know about it now, about this feedback form uh, through the CENTA app? You cannot register once the session starts. So I'm getting the question, I'm unable to register. That's why we began the session earlier. You have to register the session only then. So if you missed out now, please ensure that next session onwards, you register for the session. then it will direct you to the feedback form, and then you can download the recorder participation. So yes, registration is completely. So if you have missed out, then please ensure that next time onwards you download a recorder participation. You register for the CENTOX session. My bad. Great. Thank you, ma'am. Navpreet ma'am is here and she's talking. I'm already using CENTA app and it's a great platform to interact and upskill. Of course, we try our best. Thank you for putting it out here. We are just waiting for Dr. Pooja to come back online. She's having some technical difficulty. Once she's back, we'll just begin our session. So, would like to know what you're feeling about the new system of the feedback form. Bharat Bhatia says, came to know about the previous session. So I'm expecting you must have registered for the session. Great. Priya Pallavi ma'am says, using CENTA app on a regular basis. Yes, Dr. Pooja ma'am is here. So we were just talking about the new recorder participation, ma'am. Again, welcome back. Welcome back online.
Thank you, and I'm so sorry. These
Please don't be.
unprecedented power cuts. Yeah.
No problem, no worries. So before we begin the session, I was just reading to the comments, and let me just give you a brief introduction about Dr. Pooja. So this is not the first session that she's conducting. She has been part of many CENTOX sessions as well. And I know many of you already know her. But she has been a passionate educator for 15 years, a senior English teacher and a pastoral care coordinator at the Delhi College, Indore. Being a versatile trainer and CBSE recognized resource person, she has conducted sessions on competency-based education, conflict management, active teaching strategies for CENTA, and as part of CENTA webinars. She is a firm believer in inclusive, character-driven education. Dr. Pooja Jain encourages curiosity, compassion, and teamwork at all paces and in all classrooms. She has also contributed to curriculum development and published insightful blogs on education. We might be able to give some few more insights on that. So welcome again, Dr. Pooja, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Rastogi ma'am, and welcome everybody to this session. And allow me to present, and let's talk about what is backward design and why is it so much in discussion and conversation in education, especially where did it come from and what are its objectives and benefits. So to begin with, let me tell you people and highlight what will we gain after this session or from this session, not just after this session, but from the session. So after this session or by the end of the session, participants will be able to understand the principles and benefits of backward design. They will be able to identify the desired results. They will be able to formulate, in sense, you will be able to formulate clear learning objectives and outcomes and design assessments that will align with the learning objectives and goals. We will also be able to understand how to devise, how to design learning strategies and activities that will support students in achieving what you want to achieve and in taking students where they want or they should be. And then we will be able to reflect on the application of backward design so that curriculum planning becomes better, easier, and smoother. So backward design actually is, in one sentence, in a nutshell, comprehensively, keeping the end in the mind. So when we design a curriculum or a unit in a manner that the end is in the mind and then we go backwards, that is exactly understanding by design or backward design. A quick overview. The key points is that backward design focuses on planning curriculum by identifying desired results, then acceptable evidence, that is assessments, and then planning the learning experiences. In simple, short, and sweet terms, first we identify our learning objectives and outcomes. Then we design assessments in a manner that will align with the learning outcomes and objectives. That is how we gather evidence. And then we will design and strategize activities, planning sessions in order to take the students and help the students meet their goals. So there is a complete alignment between the objectives, that is the learning intentions, the learning goals, The assessments, be it formative assessment, diagnostic assessment, or summative assessment, and the instructional strategies, that is, classroom activities, discussions, text, resources, material, handouts, printouts, worksheets, notes, whatever the teacher has to facilitate in order to take the children to where they should be and where they're supposed to be. So that is a comprehensive overview of backward design. Now let's understand the traditional design and backward design to be able to understand that why when we talk about 21st century skills, we talk about 21st century educator, we talk about 21st century learners and teachers. What is the difference between traditional design and backward design, and why backward design? I mean, what are the benefits? How are we going to implement? But for that, we need to discriminate and differentiate between the traditional and the backward design. So, very, very importantly, when we studied in school, as students, and I'm sure when we go back to our own teachers to talk to them, we will understand that we were not taught the way we are teaching today. At least I was not taught the way I am teaching today. And I'm not talking about eons ago, I'm talking about, say, 25 years ago. I graduated from school in 2000. So 25 years ago, 30 years ago. In 20 years, 25 years, and 30 years, education and educational system and strategies and classroom strategies and activities has taken huge leaps. I remember we didn't have these online sessions. None of us, our teachers, knew what Google was. Forget about Chat GPT. We didn't have these connects. Collaboration was all physical and manual. We did not have Google Classroom and any sort of resource as a student, and our teachers were the gurus and the gods and goddesses. So it was all teacher centric. They would select the material, they would identify what content, they would plan the learning experience, and they would create assessment. Also, this was the process that first the content, then the learning experience and activities, and then the assessment. So it was all teacher centric, content centric, and it was all teacher led and teacher facilitated. What backward design does is that first we identify the desired results before we talk about anything else. What is it that I want to achieve? Where should my student be? Where is this child now? And where the child be taken to? Then we talk about assessment. How am I going to gauge this child's progress? What is it that will bring the child to terms? How am I going to understand differentiated learning? How am I going to plan things for differentiated learning? And then will we prepare the content, the resources, the materials, the activities, and have the child go through the learning experience. So there is a complete reverse in the backward design from the traditional design. Complete reverse, right? And like I said, very importantly, traditional design is more teacher-centric and more teacher-led, whereas backward design is more student-centric and student-led. We talk about student progress, individualized and personalized attention. We talk about differentiated learning strategies and activities. We talk about identifying learning gaps and thus tweaking our assessments and tweaking our strategies and tweaking our instructions. So backward design helps us largely and hugely identify a lot of learning gaps and then provide the children with scaffolding, differentiated learning instructions, and personalized attention, which also we call remediation. So that is a huge and a basic difference between traditional design and backward design. Another thing, so just to make it a little more clear, so we have textbook here, then we have the syllabus, then we have the lectures, then we have whatever resources, and then we have the exams, which is instructor centered, like I said earlier. In this case, first we have the intentions, the objectives, and the goals. Then we design assessments, largely formative assessments and then summative assessments, because formative, I'm not going to go into detail between formative and summative assessments because that is a whole concept altogether in different concept. But just to give you a little overview and brief outline is that formative assessments help teachers a lot in identifying learning gaps, not just testing the child on in junks and in chunks and then trying to prepare a progress card and a progress report. Formative assessments is something in capsules and units, short, quick, short tests that will tell us which child stands exactly where, which child needs more attention where, and how you can help each child in your classroom under your care. So then, when we have these assessments designed in our head, then keeping in mind the intentions, that is the objectives and the goals and the assessments, because that is where exactly we want to take the child. Even if it's a summative assessment and we are preparing a holistic report card, we want, or we know that this child is capable of attaining 80% in his or her report card. Now, how do we get this child to attain an 80% is then we are going to design our activities and strategies and lessons and lectures and homework and classwork and assignments. So this is the process of backward design. This concept of backward design was primarily associated and formulated and brought forward by Grant Wiggins and J. McTeague, and who developed this entire concept of understanding by design. Right? I have a short video. If I have time, I'll play it towards the end. Otherwise, I'll post the link and we'll share the link. And or if you even search it on the net, you will find this 10-15 minute video where they very beautifully explain the entire concept of understanding by design, which leads to backward design in curriculum. So backward design helps us as educators focus on the student's process of learning, and our rather than our own teaching. It's more of student centered because we are keeping every child in mind. We are talking about identifying the desired results, preparing the learning objectives and goals, then talking about assessments, and then preparing our resources, our lectures, our material, our content, and everything else. I'm also reading the chats. If there is anything that comes in here, right? So that my eyes are on the chats also, so that if there is a question that comes into picture or any insights, yeah, like the CENTA team has already posted, it will help us all learn from one another and collaborate, because collaboration is the key today, 21st century key, right? So I would want Rastogi ma'am and Jay sir to post those questions, the poll questions, if they have come in, that what is it that the participants understand by backward design? What are the challenges? I mean, whoever understands, but what are the challenges that are there if we talk about backward design? So I would like to know from the participants also if there are any challenges, or what is their understanding of the backward design, right? So let's understand the 3 steps and the 3 stages of backward design. So when we talk about the 3 steps, the first step, identifying the desired results. The second step, determining acceptable evidence. And the third step, planning learning experiences and then the instructions, right? So that is how we go backward. Now, what are the key principles of backward design? So somebody asks me, how effective can backward design be in a group learning setup such as a school? Why not? Because we're talking about school only. I'm a school educator myself. So let me just simplify it for you, ladies and gentlemen. So whenever we come back, suppose the term has started. Now from 1st of April, suppose our school term starts, the entire year starts afresh. What is it that we decide first? We sit down and we say, okay, these are the things we want our children to know. And we don't directly jump to content. This is at least what I do. If I know my child, I'm an English teacher, and if I know my child or my class needs to know poetic devices, I will highlight 5 poetic devices or figures of speech for my entire class to know. And then I will say, okay, I can test them also in the form of a quiz or an MCQ to understand whether they will have learned by the end of 2 weeks or not. And then I will start preparing my content. I will prepare my resources on simile, I will prepare my resources on metaphor, on oxymoron and personification and hyperbole, and then I will go to the class and teach them. So the first thing in my head should be, what is it that my children should know? And we will, as and when we take each step, we will know how we do it, right? So somebody asks me, how does backward designing cater to diverse learners in a classroom? So this is where it is. When we have devised our learning objectives, and then we formative assessments. Formative assessments is a very good way and a very good manner of identifying learning gaps. And through formative assessments, you can create differentiated learning worksheets, because then you have known that one of my students has not yet understood simile. So you can give that child a little more practice into simile or into a particular equation or a particular concept. You know that this child is very good in metaphor. So you can ask this child to explain another child or other group of children what a metaphor is. So this is how you can also encourage peer study and group study, differentiated learning, because through formative assessments and through differentiated learning instructions, you can encourage diversity, inclusivity, peer and group mentoring and learning, and you can have a variety of resources and a variety of instructions and strategies. Right? So that is how. For slow learners, exactly same answer. Even for slow learners, ladies and gentlemen, backward design, because you are talking about formative assessments. We are talking about lesson planning. So when through formative assessments, so I'll give you an example and then we move ahead, right? Because in the process, you'll understand. So suppose I am teaching a poem, right? Now I have a poem in my hand and I know this poem is going to be tested in unit test 1. So the moment our schools open and we are designing our week long or a month long or a term wise syllabus, we say unit test 1 and unit test 2. Now, what are the things we are going to test in unit test 1 and what are the topics or chapters we are going to test in unit test 2? So we align that, right? We differentiate that. We put it all aside. We segregate it all, right? That 3 chapters here and 3 chapters there. So we have already planned for our assessments, formative, summative, diagnostic, whatever. And then when I go into the class, I have my weekly plan ready. I have my daily lesson plan ready. So I've started teaching a poem already. I know this poem teaching is going to take 2 classes for sure, and explanation and everything. And then while I'm midway teaching the poem, why not conduct on the second day or towards the end just a quick 10-minute, 5-minute formative assessment to understand that in the last 40 minutes, whatever I have taught or whatever I have transacted has reached my students or not. So that last 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes of an MCQ or a quiz or a poll or a quick question answer or a quick activity or a formative assessment will help you understand what is it that you need to lay more emphasis on and what is it that you can skip and move ahead and quickly. So the next day when you come back or after 3 days when you come back, you know that you have to tweak your lesson plan in a manner that everybody comes to a certain pace. And then you can develop and devise certain questions and certain worksheets that will cater to everybody. So your worksheet should have, or your formative assessment should have, or your question bank should have something for everyone, even your slow learners. That is called inclusivity. Right? So let's move on to the first step of backward design and let's understand the key principles of backward design first. That is starting with the end in mind. So this is what my assessment should look like, my formative assessments and my diagnostic assessments and my summative assessments. That is what learners should know, understand, and be able to do by the end of the course or the program or the unit or the chapter. So exactly what I said when I began 2 minutes ago, that when you have it clear in your head that these are the 5 figures of speech, by the middle of class 8, my class should know. And these are the other sets. This is the other set of figures of speech and poetic devices that by the end of class 8, my children should know. So by the end of class 8, I know that these are the 10 poetic devices or 10 figures of speech that my children should know. Most certainly, there will be some or the other who will falter here and there, but at least on an average, when you talk about, you know that these are the things, these are the portions that my children should know by the end of it. That is what is keeping the end in the mind. That by the end you reach this unit, by the end of this unit, what is it that you want your learners, your participants to understand, to know, to be able to do with it, to apply, to execute, to implement? I mean, that is all Bloom's taxonomy verbs. Again, I'm not getting into it right now. And then I will try and align some assessments with that goal, with those goals in mind, in the sense that how am I going to gather evidence that my children will know this? How will I know my children have known something? How am I supposed to know that if I have taught 3 poetic devices, my children have understood everything? Is it only through homework? Is it only through classwork? Is it only through lectures, resources? You've given printouts, you've given handouts, you've given worksheets, you've written it on the board, you've shown them presentations, and we are done. We are happy and satisfied that we've done a great job. Yes, we've done a great job, but we've done a great job. How do we know that our children are equally capable and competent of doing that great job? That is where assessments come into picture. Why do we conduct assessments? Be it diagnostic assessment, be it formative assessment, or be it summative assessment, we conduct assessments not to gauge our expertise, not to see what we have taught in the class, but to gauge the expertise and the competence of the children to understand what they have learned in the class. That is important. So we align the assessments with the goals to know, and that we have evidence to see what the students have achieved and whether they have achieved or not the desired outcomes. And then comes the instructional strategies and activities, that is classroom activities and instructions and whatever materials and resources that we choose based on the topic and the content, so that the students are able to sail through the entire content, the entire process smoothly and safely, to say so. So somebody writes, for differentiated teaching, we should consider a teacher's workload. Only then they will be able to do justice. It's a process that cannot be rushed. I totally agree. But as far as teachers' workload is concerned, I've been a teacher for last 20 years almost. So been there, done that, in the same boat. We have a huge responsibility. By just saying that there is a huge workload and we don't have time, that is why lesson plans come into picture. If we design our lesson plans, if we take out a little time for slow learners, for differentiated learning and personalized attention, I'm sure we can do a lot. So that is basically an administrative thing, a management thing about the workload. I don't think I should comment on that. However, having said that, the only thing I will say is that as teachers, as educators and facilitators, we have a huge responsibility on us, huge responsibility, right? So let's talk about the first step, that is identifying the desired results. So what happens is, we're talking about 3 things primarily. One is, let's understand what the big idea is. Let's understand what are the essential questions, and let's understand then what are the skills and the knowledge that is the specific competencies that we need to be able to sail the children through. So when we are designing our lesson plans, right, we need to understand that these are the core concepts. So not everything needs equal attention. There are big ideas, that is the core concept, that needs depth and relevance and repetition. So what is the overarching concept of this entire unit? Then what is it that the children need to know a little lesser? It's all right if they know 80% of this and 50% of this and 30% of this. So this needs more attention, and this portion and this topic and this unit or this subunit needs a little more attention. So the big idea, and then breaking down the entire unit into smaller chunks and smaller portions with lesser emphasis, being familiar with, okay, if I'm familiar with this or my class is familiar with this, I think we are good to go. And then based on that, we devise, sorry, based on that, we devise essential questions, guiding questions, hinge questions, questions that will be thought provoking and that should be thought provoking in nature, that will make children curious, inquiry driven, because curiosity, creativity, and competency, all of these are 21st, and collaboration, communication, these are all 21st century skills that we need to instill in our children. So then we need to have essential questions, thought provoking questions that are inquiry driven, inquiry based, right? And then when we are devising, when we are preparing our learning objectives and learning outcomes, then we need to see that what are the specific skills, competencies that the students will achieve and should achieve by the end of this particular unit. So it's not necessary that you need to put everything at one go. So you identify, okay, here I can focus a little more on writing skills, and here I can focus a little more on comprehension skills, and here I can focus a little more on this and a little more on that. So even as an English teacher, for example, I have so much to teach my children, such a huge thing, right? Be it Shakespeare, be it poetry, be it prose, be it grammar, be it tenses or prepositions. However, I will try and find out, and I should while I'm planning my lessons every day, that this is the big idea. This is the core concept. Every child needs to know this, and this is the overarching concept. Without this, I cannot move beyond. And then I'll prepare essential questions based on this that are going to make my children more curious, more inquiry driven. And then I'll focus on 2-3 skills and competencies that I know my children should know by the end, but they should have attained by the end of it. Right? So this is what the desired results. Somebody writes, CENTA, this is for you to note that somebody writes, if we can have a lesson planning session for primary classes, secondary classes. But yes, lesson planning is very important. It is important, right? So because that's a different concept altogether. Having said all of this, if we are not well prepared, if we are not thoroughly prepared, if our mindset does not change, there is no point of talking about backward design and lesson planning. If we do not reflect and go back and change and tweak our lesson plans and strategize it and bring in differentiated learning and different techniques and strategies, then there is no point. It's all paper and pen, and this is all talk, chalk and talk. So we need to take it forward, and we need to execute it and implement it, right? So when we are talking about identifying the desired results, which is when we are planning our lessons, and then when we are putting in the lesson objectives and the learning objectives and the learning outcomes, then we need to see that what is it that is applicable? What is it that the students need to learn? What is it that is not mechanical, not technical only, but is also based on real life? There can be connections between texts. It's not that I have taught chapter 1 and chapter 1 in isolation, and then chapter 1 finds no place in any other chapter. So when we are making our lesson plans, when we are doing our objectives and outcomes, we need to have connections with the self, connections with another text, another subject, maybe any particular topic finding its place in any other subject, cross-curricular focus, right? Trans-curricular focus, and then connections with the real world, with the world outside. So whatever we have taught, does it find its place in the world outside? Does it have real life applications? And when it has real life applications, are we able to put it across to the children that yes, this topic has a huge real life context, a huge real life connection? Are we able to bring in that element into our classrooms, into our lesson plans? That is very important, right? So talking about mechanical lessons and technical lessons and individual planned lessons and activities and student engagement and assessments that are different for a lot of children. That is how you can determine how the child is progressing, right? Moving on to the second stage or the second step. So, when we are talking about assessments, right? So, when we are talking about gathering evidence of learning, in simple terms, gathering evidence for learning is assessments. Assessments which are diagnostic in nature to understand how much the child or how much the children know about a particular topic. Formative assessments during, so where diagnostic assessment is before a topic or a unit, formative is during a topic or unit, and summative is after a topic or unit, right? So performing tasks and performance tasks are real world applications. So whether whatever you have taught in the class and whether the child has understood or not, also is the child able to translate it? Also, is the child able to execute it, implement it, apply it in real life? Or is it only textbook, notebook, pen and paper, done and dusted? So it is very, very important that we understand the difference between diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, summative assessment, and performance tasks. And then there was an assessment alignment checklist also. So is it aligned directly with my learning outcomes and objectives? Is it clearly defined? Is there any particular success criteria? Are there multiple assessments? Will these assessments help my children understand? And will these assessments help me understand what my children need? So we have tested the children, gathered the evidence, and everything is done. What next? What am I going to do? So after I have assessed and gathered evidence at different points, what next? So this is how we build our lessons. After gathering evidence of learning, we identify slow learners, we identify differentiated learning, we identify the learning gaps, and then we go back and reflect as an educator, as a facilitator, as an assessor, as a teacher, that yes, there is a hole here, there is a gap here, and I need to fill in that gap. So, assessments, and especially diagnostic and formative assessments, they are a huge help in trying to identify learning gaps and then bridge those learning gaps through our instructions, through our resources, through our activities, and through our strategies. Right? So, moving on. So this I have talked about, that the assessment types, what is worth being familiar with, what is important to know, and what can endure understanding, and how you can have traditional assessments and performance based tasks and projects, right? Let's move on to the step 3 or lesson 3. Stage 3. So, stage 3 is after we've gathered evidences, say you've conducted a diagnostic test before a particular unit, and you have the evidence to test children's prior knowledge. How much each child knows, and how much, on an average, your class knows, say, about photosynthesis, because they must have studied in grade 5 and 6 a little bit, and then now in grade 9 you want to move ahead with photosynthesis, but not explaining to them everything. So you want to know how much your children know, so you conduct a diagnostic or a quick formative assessment. So primarily a diagnostic assessment to gauge their prior knowledge. And then you have gathered evidence, and now with that evidence, when you study those evidences, then you know, okay, child A, student A knows this much, student B knows this much, student C knows this much, and student D knows nothing about photosynthesis. So when you start the topic of photosynthesis on the first day, you have a little idea, or on an average, how much is your entire class familiar with the concept. And there is one child in the entire class who knows nothing about photosynthesis, has not learned, or probably has not understood. Then you strategize in a manner. Then you prepare your instructions in a manner that even the most intelligent child understands, and even the lesser one, the slow learner, gains or gathers at least something. So, when we're talking about planning, the learning experience, that is the instruction, the strategies, the resources, We talk about developing activities and resources to support learning goals. We talk about alignment between the strategies, the goals, and the assessment. And then we talk about active teaching learning strategies, collaborative tasks, hands-on learning tasks, reflection in the form of self-assessment and peer feedback, and scaffolding for the very weak ones and the slow learners. So because it is our responsibility. So there is, then this is passing on to the children as the students as the responsibility. But that will be a gradual process with the slow learners, right? So then when we talk about identifying desired results, we talk about aligning assessment with outcomes, and we talk about planning learning experiences. So all of these three steps are very, very important in trying to understand and trying to know what backward designing exactly is. So we choose a subject, we brainstorm one or two big ideas, prepare a few essential questions, learning objectives. Then we design assessments in a manner that measure these objectives and the children's progress, and then will help us review the learning objectives and outcomes, at least one formative assessment, say about a week or 10 days, or at least in a fortnight for sure. And then a performance task to engage children a little more, to engage students a little more, and to make it a little more student centric than the teacher centric. And then planning, consequently, planning the activities and strategies. So, which will be active teaching learning, or it could be videos and presentations. There is some sort of student support that is involved in your activities and strategies and planning, right? So, what we need to understand is, if we consider these questions, what enabling knowledge and skills that the child should know, what activities will equip students to gain that knowledge and skills, and what will need to be taught and coached, and how will you teach it when you're talking about performance tasks, and what materials and resources are best suited to accomplish. I mean, there could be other questions also, but when we're talking about these three steps, if we have these questions in mind and we find answers to these, our lesson plan is ready. So when I'm talking about photosynthesis, I need to break this down. Say I need 3 classes for photosynthesis in grade 8. Per class, I identify 3 to 4 learning objectives and 2 learning outcomes and a performance task for the entire unit. And per lesson, per class, I at least have one activity, one instruction strategy that is collaborative in nature, student-centered and student-focused in nature, where student engagement and involvement is more than my lecturing, my presentation. Right now, I know it's a monologue. I can't help it. It's a webinar. I can only read your chats and questions here and then understand it. CENTA, I hope we are posting the poll questions. I want to also know from my participants what is their view on certain things. So have some questions be already been posted? I would, right? So these are so I've prepared a few questions for you all so that I also understand. I need evidence of learning. It's been 30 minutes almost, that, or 35 minutes that I have been talking. So what is it that I'm able to transact, and what is it that you're able to gather? That is important for me also to understand. So let's look at a few examples, right? So just kind of quickly highlighted 1 or 2 examples. Desired results. So the topic is photosynthesis. I've been talking about photosynthesis, right? So let's see, when we're talking about the first step, that is the desired results. We talk about big idea. So photosynthesis, what is photosynthesis, right? Like when I began with this session, I gave you an overview of backward design, a big idea of a gist that, okay, this is backward design. And then now I'm proceeding ahead and proceeding forward with it, with some essential questions that I had prepared already in mind when I was preparing my presentation on backward design for all of you. So there were a few questions which I also listed down as poll questions, right? So that this is what I want my participants to know. This is what my participants may not know. How do I gather all of this? So I had a few essential questions that I listed it down. So, for example, how does photosynthesis contribute to the energy flow? Why is photosynthesis vital for life on Earth? Right? And what will be my learning objectives? The chemical process, role of chloroplasts, chlorophyll, and how photosynthesis impacts environment and carbon cycle in particular. Right? Then assessments, say if I talk about formative assessments, there's something called entry ticket and exit ticket. Entry ticket is prior knowledge, gauging children's prior knowledge, and exit ticket is when you are done with your topic, last 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 3 minutes, a quick summary in whichever manner, bullet points, summary, mapping it out, discussion, so that you know that the children have understood. So summarizing in bullet points and talking about it or writing about it or discussing it to be able to understand, for you to be able to understand what the children have understood, for me to be able to understand what my children have understood, right? And then a summative, if it is included in your unit test or if it is included in your terminal exam. So obviously, yes, there will be questions from the chapter, from the topic. And a performance task, maybe you could ask them to prepare a presentation or a poster or a chart paper or a small skit based on photosynthesis. And then I will design my learning strategies and activities. Could be a hands-on lab activity, also reading the carbon cycle, reading from the text, diagrammatic expression on the board, handouts, printouts, videos, whatever, anything that is infographic. Because if I give too much of a lecture on this topic, it might just get boring and fly over the head. So if I give them a little graphical presentation and infographic information, I'm sure they will be then able to understand a little better. Right? So this is one example. Let's look at another example. So we're talking about middle schools, social studies, the American Revolution, right? So I remember having studied the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the Civil War, and the World War, and this war and that war, a lot of things. Remember studying, right? So when we are talking about the American Revolution, let's look at the big idea. How it shaped the development of democratic principles, some essential questions, the causes, the impact, and different groups of society. How, right? And then my learning objectives, that events that leading to the American Revolution, the role of various groups, the ideals of revolution to the modern democracy, and how has it shaped the history of America. Formative assessment, one summative assessment, and a performance task. We can have role plays, we can have debates, we can have discussions, we can have parties made, and a nice debate actually will, or a role play where children are actually portraying themselves as people, a part of American Revolution and the different parties and the different groups, and putting across their perspectives, right? So this one thing can help me, and this can also serve as a learning activity, as a teaching activity, as an active teaching learning strategy also. You can mix it. Your performance task most of the times can also help or act as an active teaching learning strategy. Could you highlight backward designing, taking example from a topic related with geography? I'm afraid I would, if you give me a quick, because not a very geography person. I can give you examples from English, though I'm an English person, right? But any which ways, if you can just look at these two examples, Kunal sir, and then if you can see how you can relate it. I mean, just don't go by the sentences and technicalities. Give me a topic. Just post it on the chat box. A topic in geography. Say weather. Is weather a suitable topic? So if we talk about weather, so let's talk about the big idea in weather, right? So big idea, what is weather and how weather affects the globe? And then weather, the solar system. All right, the solar system. Yeah, I know a little bit about solar system. So what is the solar system? And how largely the solar system plays a huge part in the formation of the universe, because we know that in the universe there are so many solar systems, right? Now that becomes the big idea, essential questions. Solar system, what is solar system? Planets, how does it affect the revolution and the rotation? And you can link in so many other terms, right? The solar system and the galaxy. So you bring in all of those terms. The learning objectives will be, I want my learners to know the concept of solar system, understand that how there are different planets. So you devise those learning objectives taking verbs from Bloom's taxonomy. There is one thing I will like to emphasize and play a little more emphasis here is that solar system, learning objectives and learning outcomes, they have verbs from the Bloom's taxonomy, please. All right. So do refer to Bloom's taxonomy. Now that is again a huge concept and a different concept for another session maybe. And then I can prepare assessments, a formative assessment in the form of a quick quiz, an activity in the form of a role play. So when I'm talking about solar system, I have a child placed in the center as the sun, and then 9 other children moving around as the planets, right? And then talking about the different positions of the planets in the solar system, right? So that becomes a performance task plus an active teaching learning strategy also. And then I prepare my resources, maybe a video. Thanks to technology, there's so much available online. So we can talk about a video. We can talk about, for a prior learning knowledge, you can have a KWHL activity also. So when I talk about KWHL, it means what do you know? What do you want to know? How will you find out what do you want to know? And at the end, what have you learned? So to begin with solar system, I will have my children do a KHWL activity. So let me see whether my children know anything about solar system already or not. Do they have a prior knowledge or prior information or not? And then I will ask them, what is it that they want to know more about solar systems? Like, I am curious to know, why is Pluto no more a proper planet? Why is it a dwarf planet? Where has Pluto disappeared? Now there are a lot of memes and a lot of proverbs and idioms and quotes coming. Don't become like Pluto, dwarf planet, vanishing away. So I want to know a little more about Pluto. My next question is, how will I know more about what I want to know? So obviously through teachers, through resources, through videos, through reading. It doesn't happen automatically. There has to be an effort put to it. And then when I'm done with the entire topic of solar system, at the end, I will ask my children, what have you learned? Now this can serve also as your formative assessment, because the last column, when the children fill in, as in what have you learned, they will be able to summarize, recap, and then tell you, okay, these are the 3 points they have been able to learn, and these are the 2 points they have been able to learn, and somebody has learned 5 things from today's session, right? So actually, that is a lot of times I do a KWHL chart, the KWHL activity, because it is from the beginning till the end. Huge thing to do, right? And then I prepare my notes and my resources, my plan for 3 days or 4 days, how long ever solar system takes. So I hope I have been able to resolve your query, right? So moving ahead. Let's talk about very quickly benefits of backward design, right? So there is clarity and focus. Then there is alignment of instructions and assessments. There is student engagement. There is better achievement of goals, because the intention has changed, the focus has changed, the shift has changed completely, right? So there is that clarity, very quick clarity. What are the challenges? Now, before I show you the challenges, I want some of you to put down in the chat box, what do you think are the challenges of implementing backward design? Or do you think there are challenges or there are no challenges? So I want some of you, I'll wait for say about 10 seconds. Just about 10 seconds for some of you to quickly write down. We want session for English grammar. All right. So for some of you to write down if there are any challenges and what are your challenges of implementing backward design. Classroom management, yes. Change in behavior, yes. Slow learners, yes. How to cater to slow learners, that is personalized attention, differentiated learning. It is time taking, yes. Time consuming. How to manage the classroom with so many activities and so many things, yes. Are there any other challenges? Changing the mindset, yes, is a huge, huge challenge, because till the time we change our mindset, we cannot change. Identifying the desired result, yes. Time frame is, yes, a challenge. Time factor in classroom. So these are the common challenges. Acceptance, that is to accept the concept, differentiated, different levels of learning. So I think common challenges, absolutely common challenges, right? Classroom management, differentiated learning, how to include every learner into it, time frame, that is, yes, the number, the strength of the class, yes, handling students with different difficulty levels and different competencies and different skills, yes. So all of these are the challenges. Let me show you the challenges that I have put. I've exactly put in the same thing. Time consuming, the alignment issue, that is how to identify the desired result and then align it with the assessment and then frame the objectives and outcomes and all of that. Lack of teacher training. Because till the time we have enough teacher training, the mindset changes. What can we even do about it? Is my question, right? So there are challenges, yes. I am not saying that there are no challenges. I also face those challenges. But you know what I do? Simple mantra. It's all right. This too shall pass and all is well. We are educators, we are teachers, we are the ones who have the power and the control. Because I'll tell you very honestly, our children don't need us anymore. They have chat GPT, they have videos. A lot of my children watch a lot of YouTube videos rather than listening to me to understand a concept. If we do not put in that effort, if we do not break that mindset, shake the children out of that mindset of technology usage and exploitation, our relevance goes a little notch down. So to make ourselves relevant, we have to create that human connect, that bond. Otherwise, schools are irrelevant then. It's just the laptop and the child. So to be able to infuse that relevance, to be able to instill and to be able to endorse that relevance, it is very important that we build that connect with our children. And that is going to keep us above everything, us as teachers, us as parents. Absolutely, right? So we need to tweak constantly as per the need of the children, need of the child, requirement of the class. Collaboration. Now, how you can overcome these challenges? Collaborate with colleagues. Very, very important. Use templates and tools. So there's so much resource available for us also. Why not make use of that? Why not use technology to our advantage to become better teachers and better facilitators and more resourceful in nature? We need to incorporate student feedback. So very often, I mean, time and again, keep taking feedback from students and understand their need, their interest, their inclination, and reflect, tweak, and then bring about those changes and reflect and revise. Because after the feedback, if we don't reflect, if we don't revise, if we don't keep up to the pace, and if we don't go back with revised mindset, with changed mindset, we are where we were. We will continue to do what we were doing. So to be able to evolve, it is very important to take feedback and to reflect and then to implement, right? So how do I implement backward design in the course, in my unit, in my topic, right? I've told you identifying the big ideas, then transforming those big ideas into essential questions, right? And then guiding those questions for developing assessments and guiding those questions for developing learning activities, right? So for example, I'll just go back very quickly. So focus on the big idea. What is it that if you meet a child, say about 5 years later, and ask the child, do you remember I taught you solar system when you were in grade 8 or grade 9? And the child says, solar system? Ma'am, what is solar system? No, I'm sorry, I don't remember. The child doesn't even remember the big concept. But yes, if the child says, yes, 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 solar system, we stay in this Milky Way galaxy and there are 9 planets and Earth is one of those planets. I remember, ma'am, you had taught us, and ma'am, you had also made us do an activity where I was the sun in the center. And there were 8 children, 9 children around me, moving and revolving. Yes, yes, as I remember. That is the big idea. That stays on with the child for long. That. So that core concept, that principle, that theory, that should serve as a prioritizing content. Very, very important. Important facts. 1947, Indian independence. I was not there. My parents weren't there. How do I know about it? But yes, because I've read so much and my teachers have taught me so much through history lessons, I remember, I know 15th August, Indian Independence Day. We celebrate it every year. It's a huge concept. 26th January, Republic Day, 1950. The Constitution was instituted. Just that basic, huge concept that has stayed with us forever, forever, right? So that we need to be discretionary about. That clear concept that needs to stay with the children forever, for a long time. Then these big ideas to be translated into essential questions. That it's not a right or a wrong question, but yes, essential questions to promote inquiry, debate, discussion, collaboration, argument, research, and then draw conclusions. Facts, figures, statistics, data, right? Our own assumptions, challenge our own assumptions and stereotypes, and then address important issues, and then thought provoking questions to be generated across disciplines. It's not that solar system, only geography. No other teacher, no other subject can touch solar system. There is a lot of physics, there is a lot of maths involved, distance, speed, and light, a speed of light and sound, and this and that, and frequency, climate change, what not, the history of solar system. And solar system, I can, as an English teacher, I can take up it as a debate, a discussion, communication skills. So it is transdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, multidisciplinary, right? And then assessments, that whether through formative assessments, through an exit card, or through a role play or a performance task, whether my children have been able to understand the concept of solar system or not. Yes or no? So do these assessments address the learning objectives of the entire unit or not, right? And then what are the skills, competencies? Have I achieved what I wanted to achieve? What activities, what resources, what materials, and whatever I have to give to my children. I'll quickly touch upon the 6 facets of understanding, that is explanation, interpretation, application, perspective, empathy, and self-knowledge. So I'm not going to go into the detail. I think there's a little time constraint. I'm not going to get into too much of a detail. I'm just trying to cover up for the first 5 minutes that I had missed out on, and then we'll wind up. Now, very quickly, the benefits and objectives of understanding backward design. This is the last segment. Alignment of curriculum with desired outcomes, promoting goal-oriented instructions, meaningful assessments, deeper understanding, more student engagement, supporting differentiated instructions, reflection, continuous improvement, real-world applications, collaboration among educators, and maximizing educational resources. These are the benefits of backward design, right? So I'm now open to very quick, clear idea about, so very quick questions, if there are any. You can post it in the chat box and I'll take it up, and let me see if I can answer them very quickly. Yes, solar system with art also, absolutely. So we bring in that perspective also. Are there any questions?
I'm going to read out, ma'am, few
Yes,
questions, few comments,
yes,
as well as like my personal view on this one, because the
yes,
examples were explicit. And I really like that how you broke down the examples and gave them to the participants, right? So we have few comments and questions. Some questions you have already answered. In case you
right.
missed out some questions, I just want to bring it up. And participants, please bring your questions as ma'am is answering other questions as well. So, so there was this question on the challenge is the time taken to bring
Yes,
students to the expected level,
yes,
since all will be
right.
included. So
Yes.
that they feel is the main challenge.
It is a
And
huge
then,
challenge, absolutely. So I'll quickly comment on that. So what comes into picture is, and Rastogi ma'am, I think you should take this up also, because lesson planning is a huge thing. That challenge, that time taxing and time consumption, if we are not clear about lesson planning, if we don't plan our lessons well, if we
right,
don't break down our monthly lessons into fortnightly and weekly and daily lesson plans or unit wise, that time constraint challenge is always going to be there. So why don't
right,
you organize a session or maybe a face to face, I mean, a master class on lesson planning where these participants can get a clear idea of how to design objectives, outcomes, strategize the activities, and how to break a
true,
bigger unit into smaller chunks to be able to take it to the class, what to give priority to, and what to let be, what can be
right.
turned into a flipped classroom, what can be avoided in the class, and what can be brought to the class. So those things all is a part of the lesson planning. So we need to be
True.
clear in our head, absolutely.
Right. And like knowing the importance of it, we do organize sessions. I don't know if participants be part of it. Please, check out the sessions that is upcoming. We do put this out sessions for now and then. And then
Yes,
following that questions as well as the comments that you have passed, there are some teachers who say that they do have plans, like they have created the
yes.
lesson plans, but then they are usually stuck with hectic, and then it's very hectic work, and then they are thinking more about the portion completion stressed.
Yes, so
That's
that
it.
that is a huge
Yeah.
challenge, syllabus completion, because especially with higher classes, because I teach from grades 8 to 12. So I know
Right.
what a huge challenge it is, especially in board classes. I'm a board class teacher, class 10s and 12s. However, having said that, speaking from personal experience, again, we need to prioritize content. We need
Right.
to know that, okay, this much needs our priority and attention, and this much can be skipped quickly or glanced quickly or skimmed through and scanned through. So
Right.
that based on the time, based on the classroom environment, based on the competency of the entire class, my class and your class are going to be two different levels. All right. So section A is different from section B. Same
True.
topic will be dealt with differently in two different classes, right? So as a teacher, I have to gauge that, okay, yes and no. So the time constraint and the hectic schedule and all of it, it is a part of today's time. We can only crib and complain about it, but
True.
eventually we are answerable to the stakeholders.
Yeah, true.
So
That is extremely
the
true. Agree.
responsibility lies on us, absolutely
Right.
on us.
Prioritizing is like a big task, and I
Yes,
think teachers need to
prioritizing.
step up on that. True, that
Yes,
is
because
correct.
I'll
And then,
I'll tell you from personal experience. When I was a novice teacher, when I had just started teaching about 20
mhm,
years ago, a young teacher, excited. I mean, I now look back and realize, oh my God, I used to spend so much of time on irrelevant concepts because I was so excited. I used to be so enthusiastic. I wanted to give everything to my children. So, what needed only 10 minutes of attention, I used to give 2 days of attention. And then I used to crib, I used to cry. So, I also learned through a lot of hard work and struggle that prioritizing is very important. So, in our excitement, we go on and on and on. And sometimes we skip in our excitement because we are not well
true,
prepared,
very true.
also.
Yeah, yeah,
So
true, very
that
true.
is important.
Uh, and then there was this one more question on like in the same thread of there. Maybe I can answer this question. So current teachers, Deepa B. Ma'am asked, "Okay, current teacher trainings don't cover backward designing much.
Yes.
Are there available resources, training for educators on backward designing? Even though you have answered, ki, it's technology is there, you can research, you can
Yes.
find out your own
Yes.
resources, but then is there anything that you would want to add?"
No, so to be honest, like even just about 3, 4 months later, earlier, I mean, 3, 4 months ago, I was doing a whole module on this curriculum development for another organization, and there was
Okay.
8 sessions I had to do, and some of those topics and modules were very new to me, or I knew about them, but I also, but then I practiced it, I researched it, I took it to my own classroom, and I exploited technology. I spoke to other educators about it, I collaborated, and then I brought it to the table. So collaboration and teamwork and talking to one another. I mean, today when I'm talking to you, you're talking to me, and I'm reading out their comments and their examples also. I'm taking something back home with me also. So,
Right, right. Absolutely.
communication and collaboration is so important. So
On the
important.
point of you taking back something, I would want to read up some of the poll result, some
Right.
essential poll result
Please,
that we have
yes, yes.
gotten. So somewhere I'll just start with, how often do you align assessment with desired learning outcomes? So we got like the majority of the portion that said ki always we always align with assessment with the desired learning outcome was 64%. And I'm telling
Okay.
you from the 300 people who have voted for this one, and
Oh,
less
wow.
and rarely is 0%, which is the good news.
Wow.
And do you use multiple forms of evidence like project, exams, portfolios to assess learning outcomes? We got always people who always use it as 70% and rarely as
Lovely.
1%.
Okay, lovely. So
Yes,
see,
and
we are there. We are there. Yeah.
true, right. And then, like, I think this is very important for teachers as well. Do you regularly reflect and revise your curriculum based on student
Yeah, this is
feedback and outcomes?
important.
They're very
Very
crucial.
important.
And then
Yeah.
we got always as 72%, often as 23%, and sometimes as 3%, and luckily, rarely as 0%. So, like,
So there you go. So if you are taking student feedback and if we are revising our curriculum, not the curriculum, we can't revise the curriculum, but we can revise our
right,
strategies,
right,
instructions, how we
true.
are conducting ourselves in the class. That if we revise and reflect on, a problem is solved.
Such an informative session. Thank you so much for
My
joining in.
pleasure.
And I know people would like to love to connect with you post this session. We'll share the
Sure.
feedback to you as well as people who would want to connect with you for more such sessions as well. It's always nice
Absolutely.
to have you back. Thank you so
Pleasure.
much.
Thank you, CENTA, for the opportunity and for connecting all of us together. It's a huge, huge thing, right? So, so many of us from across the world come on the common platform, and CENTA is doing a wonderful job. I've known CENTA for the 9, 10 years now. I've been connected with you people. So it's always amazing to come collaborate with educators and teachers and facilitators and meet new people. It's always lovely.
Always a pleasure to have you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining in.
Thank
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining this session. Before we go back to the session, there are a lot of queries, so I am quickly going to walk to you towards how to download the feedback form. Now, this is a very crucial part because many tickets have come in this session. So this is only if you have registered for the session. So you have to register for the session. In case you have not registered for this session, then please ensure that next time onwards you register for the session, because the recorder participation and the feedback form is available only if you have registered for the session. I'm repeating again, only if you have registered the session. So if you have registered for the session, go to the CENTA app, go to the webinar where you have registered, right? The registered, and then you can see that after 6 p.m., the registered button must have changed to submit feedback button, just like how it's shown on the screen. Once the feedback button, you press on it, it will direct you to the feedback form. You please give us the ratings, give us your details, all are mandatorily to be filled, and then you can download the record of participation directly, hassle free, right there. So please ensure that you take the webinar code, which is given at the bottom of this screen, 6811, and enter the code over there where it is required in the feedback form, and ensure that next time onwards you do register. Feedback form will not be shared in the email, or feedback form will not be shared if you are not registered. Feedback form will not be shared post the session is completed and the session has ended and concluded at all. So, and then all these learnings will still be available in your My Learning section once you have registered for it. So do not worry about it. The past session also, the feedbacks, the recorder participation is available only if you have registered for the past session. Since the session is ended, you cannot fill the feedback form, and we would not be providing feedback form for the past session as well. So please check and ensure that you fill the that you register and watch the session through CENTA app. So thank you all for joining in and have a great day. Bye bye.